to the class. Wow, I can still see the participants still climbing. Okay, I'll give about another 2 minutes and welcome everyone. Hopefully you're able to see the chat and you're able to see the question that Kim has already posted in, that's already been posted in there. So please share where you are coming, where you're joining us from, which organization, what your name is, and what your title is. Thank you for everyone that's jumping in there. Appreciate it. And as you can see on the screen, I'm pretty much advertising our next annual conference coming up this spring. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Joy Watkins. I am currently TOC's event coordinator, coordinating the 24-25 year. I've also joined our annual conferences team and supporting the program committee in that aspect as well. And as you can see, April 27th through April 30th of next year is going to be our annual conference, formerly known as the Annual Institute. We have now transitioned to the National Gathering of Learning and Development Professionals. And TOC 25 will be in Philadelphia again this year at the DoubleTree. So those of you that joined it last year, we're going back to the same location. We're going to have a whole new array of facilitators, new events that year. So please come out. Our registration on our TOC webpage is open. So it'll be $1,700 if you register by August 31st per person. If you're registering a group of 3 or more, that's going to be $1,600 per person. So you get that additional discount. Those rates are all going to go up on after August 31st. So please be mindful of that. And I know fiscal year funds are coming to close. So if you still got some funds left over, that's a great time to register for it, because we both know in the Fed, we're not sure when FY25 funds will come through, whether it's this fall or next spring. And if you do have questions as we roll through, go ahead and post those in chat. I'll be here all day for that. And as a reminder, and for those of you that are new to TOC, our mission of the TOC is to provide those developmental programs to help strengthen the networking and the building within our own government by utilizing and leveraging our friends in industry and in academia. So we do have a number of industry and academia professionals that also join TOC to help boost that. Our focus is on our learning and development community and strengthening our community and boosting our development through networking, through these opportunities, through these resources. Those are our main missions as we move through. As we're moving into that mission, our focus is our vision. What do we have on the horizon? And that is building that community. You'll see that throughout this year, we're focused on building our community of federal learning and development professionals, our industry partners, and our academia partners. And this year, we're continuing with our Discover and Discuss sessions. We're jumping into deep dives. We have 3 deep dives this year. We have an L&D showcase that's scattered throughout the program year, and we have more as we include our Graduate School USA sponsored exclusive learning events and networking opportunities. So we have a lot in store for you this year. Again, normally we don't start in August, but this year we are going to be starting in August, and we're starting today as we initiate and orient our program year. Next month, our Discover and Discuss is going to be amplifying your influence, leading beyond authority. And that's going to be September 10th. And that's also going to be a Zoom webinar. Registration is also open for that. So feel free, when time permits, jump into the TOC website, click on that RSVP button, and reserve for that webinar. We have had over 150 people RSVP for today's webinar, which is E-Learning Doesn't Have to Be Boring, with our wonderful facilitator, Dr. Kimberly Stott. So she is going to be initiating our program year. She's our first event of our program year, and we're more than happy to have Dr. Kim Stott on board and bringing us into this next program year. So Dr. Kim Stott, I turn it over to you. Please go ahead and share your screen. And welcome, Dr. Kim Stott.
Thank you so much. It's such a pleasure to be here today. Let me go back and find my presentation here. And I am so excited to be here with you today. I was connected to you all through last year's conference in my hometown of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. And I am just really thrilled to be here today to represent what I presented at the conference. So wonderful opportunity. If you haven't had a chance already to in chat, tell us your name and your title and the organization you're from and where you're joining us from, that would be fantastic, because it's a great way for us to connect to one another, get a sense of who's in the room, and also recognize some people that maybe we've met previously and haven't had a chance to see for a while. So anyway, hopefully you have a chance to do that. And I'm looking forward to getting to know you through our session today. I'm going to tell you just a little bit about me. This is a picture of me in my home office in Las Vegas, Nevada, with my dog, Gigi. I have two little dogs, Gigi and Donnie, and they are my great office mates and best coworkers I've ever had. I am an HR and training consultant. I have had a consulting practice for many years, and I am also a professor. I teach at the University of Maryland Global Campus, and I teach in their HR program there in the College of Business, and I teach training and development courses and human resource courses. So I am a lifelong learner. And I have a lot of experience in training and development, but I am always trying to learn and grow myself. So I'm looking forward to picking up some tips and tricks and techniques from you all. And we're going to have an opportunity to kind of learn from each other. So I'm very pleased to be here today and looking forward to getting to know you. You can connect with me on LinkedIn. You'll learn more about my bio by taking a look at that. And I have a link to that at the end. All right, let's go over what we're going to be doing today in the time that we have together. So we're going to be together for about the next 85 minutes. We're doing some introductions, getting the groundwork laid for our time together. And then we're going to spend all of our time looking at how do we energize the online training that you're designing or facilitating, whether you're doing that live, synchronously, or like this with a webinar, or you're doing it asynchronously through design tools like Articulate or LinkedIn Learning. Whatever the tools are that you're using, we're going to go over techniques that you can use in those different mediums. So we're going to start off by looking at how do we open up our classes with a bang so that people are really happy to be there, and then they're excited about the content. And then we're going to look at how do we keep them engaged when we're delivering the meat and potatoes of our training, the content. And then last but not least, we're going to look at how do we wrap things up memorably. We know that having been to trainings ourselves, there's often people just closing it out by going, thank you, and just walking off the virtual stage or the actual stage. We don't want to do that. We want to leave people with a memorable closing. And then we'll have some final tips and takeaways and some questions and answers. So that's what we're planning to do in the time we have together. All right. What I'd like to do is to hear a little bit about you. So that's going to orient me in your experience. So you'll see on the screen right here a QR code. And what I would like you to do, or I'd like to invite you to do, is to hold up your camera from your cell phone to that QR code, and it is going to take you to a Menti poll, and there you're going to have one question to answer. So please follow the QR code to the Menti poll, which I'm going to open up in just a second so we can see the results coming in and get to know you just a little bit better. So give you a second to follow that QR code. And then I'm going to go over to the Menti screen, which will also have the Menti ID number. So if you're not able to access it via your cell phone, we'll be able to get over there to another medium.
And Kim, we do have some people that do not have access to their cell phones due to the location they are.
Okay. All right. Hang on one sec. I'm going to go right over to the Menti and we'll be right back there. Hang on one second. Let me get that open. And we will go right there. So I'll give you another way to get in. So thank you for letting me know that. We always have an alternative plan in our pockets. So here we go. All right. wrong one. Help me out, Zoom. There we go. Oh, so if you go to menti.com and then use code 6279004, you'll be able to answer this question. So I'm asking you about your past experience designing and delivering synchronous online training programs like this, or designing asynchronous online training programs using Articulate or other softwares. This is going to give me a sense of your experience and what mediums you've taught in. You can click both if you want. If you've had experience in both mediums, that'll be great too. All right, hopefully everybody can see the report. You could only click one. Okay. If you've done both, I should have given you both the option. So thank you for that. I'll fix that for the next go around. Add both. Okay. All right, so just to answer which one you most predominantly have had experience with, right? So if it's designing for this medium, click that first one. And if it's you've had more experience using the, designing for the asynchronous, go ahead and click that one. Okay. Oh, you were able to click both via the QR code. Okay, thank you so much. All right, so it looks like here we've had more experience with this modality than the asynchronous, but that's good to know. But I know some of you have been in both places and both spaces, just like me. Although I would say that this methodology delivering like this has been my most probably have had the most experience with. So that is not including my online teaching experience. All right, beautiful. Thank you for letting us get to know you a little bit more through this method. I am going to go back to my PowerPoint right now. And again, Menti is a great tool. If you haven't used it before, I encourage you. I think they have a free version and then a paid version. Most of the things I try to use are free because I like to hold on to my money, but some things I do invest in and make if I use them multiple times, or I need to, if I like it and I need to use it and want to use it more. All right, thank you for letting me know about you. We're going to go on right now and we're going to take a look to start our program off by taking a look at two different training programs. One is a live facilitated session like this one, a recording of it, and then one is an asynchronous training program. And what I want us to do is I want us, as we look at those training programs, what I want us to do is to consider them through the lens of the framework that the first presenter has presented to us, and that is, was the training dynamic? Was it interactive? Was it engaging? And was it exciting? All right, so we're going to take a look at our first example, and then we're going to come back to this criteria in just a moment, and we're going to see what we can learn from these two presentations. So hang on one quick sec. Let me go over to go over to our first presentation. Oops. And one second. One second.
Thing you do when you wake up in the morning, you've been checking your phone. Stop that. Instead, try to check.
And as we wait to for this to pop up, we did troubleshoot everything earlier today and it worked beautifully. So like with all technology, sometimes it works right when we need to, and sometimes Zoom or internet kind of plays with us a little bit. So again, I want to thank everyone for joining us today, and thank you for engaging in the chat as we jumped in and played with Menti.
At 100 PC Effective. Hello and welcome to this webinar, The Good, the Bad and the Ugly of E-Learning. My name's John Wellwood, Managing Director of 100% Effective, and for the next 30 minutes or so I'm going to be talking to you about e-learning and the good things, the bad things and the ugly things about it. The other voice that you'll hear as we talk about these things is Philippa. Philippa's Head of Marketing at 100% Effective, and she's going to moderate for us as we go through. If you've got any questions, please ask them by typing them in the chat stuff on the left-hand side of the screen, and we'll either talk about them as we go or we'll pick them up at the end, just depending on what they are. You can also join us on Twitter, so if you use the number or the hashtag or whatever it is, at 100PC Effective, then you can see what other people are saying, or you can ask us questions that way as well. So without further ado, let's start talking about e-learning. Lots of people have got experience of e-learning in different ways. I remember back in the late 1980s, beginning of the 90s, when I worked for Kodak, I was given an e-learning course to take. It was probably some compliance course or other. And what I was actually sent was a PowerPoint slide deck with the notes underneath it, and I was told to read it. If that's your paradigm or the way you've seen e-learning in the past, then we start to get people, when we ask them about e-learning, saying things like this. They say, I can't learn like that. It's dull, it's boring, it doesn't give me any engagement. I need to have interaction with other people, otherwise I can't learn. So they have a very negative aspect and outlook on what e-learning is like. Effectively, they think it's like reading a book. E-learning has moved on substantially in the last 10 years and is far more engaging and better than it's ever been. Good e-learning for us should be dynamic, it should be engaging, it should be interactive, and it should be exciting. And if it's not, then of course you're going to get all the things that I've just said about it being dull and not being engaging at all. So by dynamic, it should have movement, it should have colour, it should have a story, it should catch the attention of the learner so that they can move it forward and do better things and learn the skills that are required. It needs to be interactive, so it needs to drag you into the learning activity by making you do things. Do an exercise, drag and drop these things. It needs to make you better and engage in the story and the learning as you go through. And ultimately, it needs to be exciting and fun. If it's not, then of course it's not going to make your learning.
Okay, now let me show you the criteria again. And I want you in the chat to tell us, what about that training that you just watched? Whoa, no, was, go back to our PowerPoint. Okay. I'm going to show my, go back to my PowerPoint. Hang on 1 second. Goodness gracious, Zoom is not helping me this morning. Hang on 1 second, all. Thank you for bearing with me. I'm gonna go back to my PowerPoint. There we go. Okay. All right, what about that training was dynamic, interactive, engaging, or exciting? So just type your answer in chat. What about it?
And so Denise had just replied as well.
Okay.
That he didn't practice what he was preaching in the learning video until he got to the interactive part. A lot of people saying like none of the above.
Yep.
Absolutely nothing. I love it.
That's awesome. Okay.
Wait,
Yes.
we had a positive comment. We did have a
Okay.
positive comment.
Oh, yep.
It
Bright
was
colors.
colorful.
Yes, it was very colorful. So in a way, it was dynamic, right? Yes, it did have character and storyline. Yes, all of that. Okay. Visuals were good. All right. So there was some good about it, right? And that was fantastic. So we'll see some of the things that, yep, colorful graphic. We're bored already out of the gate. Okay. All right. So what I want to do is I want to have us take a look at, thank you, an asynchronous training program. All right. So one that was designed, I think it was like through Articulate. And I want you to see again what about it was dynamic, interactive, engaging, and exciting. And let's see if this designer has done a better job. Okay, so 1 second. Let's stop sharing. I'm going to go over to my other example here. All right. And be right back. All right, here we go. Put this up here. One second. All right, here we go. Okay, so let's go back to that last example we just saw. What about that program was dynamic, interactive, engaging, exciting? I'll take other comments on that one. Who was dancing to that? Who was... Okay. Too fast, distracting video in the background, did have music. Okay, just send me the PowerPoint. I could read it on my own. This is, yeah. I found myself getting a little nervous during that one with the music and all those, all the activity that was going on in behind the static words. And it was going very fast, right? Too fast. Positive music. I love that. Some really, on this without my classes, nothing. Yep. If you are visually impaired, you'd miss all of the content. Okay. Too much, too much, too much. Yes. Okay. So I'm with you. I think this is a good start for us because we can only go further than these designers, right? All right. What I want to do is I want to give you a chance to kind of get to the moral of the story. Like, what are we learning from these two different examples that we started with that were not the best? So in advance of today's session, I am hoping that you each got a little handout. If not, we can post it in the chat and you can go to page 2 of that little handout. And on page 2 of that handout, just write in chat if you did not get it, and we'll share it with you. On page 2 of your handout, you will find a word search that was created using freepuzzlemaker.com. And in there, I'd like you to find a phrase that provides us with the moral of the story of those 2 examples we just saw. All right, you did not get the handout.
So, Kim, they didn't get the
Handout.
handout.
Yep,
Do you have
handout
it?
is
You can-
coming in right now, should be in chat.
Okay,
Okay, perfect.
Beautiful.
Thank you, Joy.
Feeling
Perfect, I
has
see
to
it.
be boring practice worksheet.
okay. Yep, it's just a worksheet and then 2 pages. So if you go to the second page, you're going to see a word search. And just take a look at that. I know you'll have it and won't have time to print it out, but just go ahead and use your eyes to see if you can find the phrase. And once you have it, you think you have it, go ahead and type it in the chat. And I will share the example. And I will share what it is. I'll just take a couple moments, let your eyes do the walking. Okay, so go ahead and look on page 2 of the worksheet, and you'll see a word search there. And what I'd like you to do is find a phrase that provides us with the moral of the story of what we can take away from taking a look at those 2 examples, okay? And then when you find it, when you think you have the phrase that gives us the moral of the story, type it in chat. And that will help the rest of us who haven't found it go ahead and orient our eyes to find it in that. Okay. Moral of the story from the video example. So find the phrase that provides the moral of the story. Thank you. Thanks, Joy. All right, you guys are getting close. Yay, okay. Becca. Yeah, we can do better. All right, give you another second to find it. Okay, here it is. Just in case, we can do better. We can do better. Okay, excellent. Becca, congratulations, but there were several of you who were really, really close and fantastic. So thank you for doing that. And we can do better. And that's what the rest of our time today is going to be focused on, is how we can do better, because we can, right? All right, fantastic. All right, so to do better, what we want to do is we want to open any of our training programs strong. All right, whether it's our asynchronous program or whether it's our live program, just like this, we want to connect right away with the audience. We want to not have them be bored, like I saw some of your comments earlier. We want them to feel glad that they invested the time in the program and be excited and interested in what's to come. So there are a number of things that we can do to get the attention of our audience and to connect with them from the very beginning. All right. So one of the first things that we can do is we can start off our training program with a compelling fact, right? So we could say, did you know that the average learner today has an attention span of a gnat? Okay. Well, maybe it's a little better than a gnat, but so we're going to give them a compelling fact that's going to connect them. We can say in this program, we're going to present to you techniques that are going to be able to meet your learners where they are with that short attention span and help make sure that they get the information that they need in the time that they have. All right. We can also start off a program, whether it's live or asynchronous, with a thought-provoking image or artifact. I train a very large international union on presentation skills, and a lot of them start off their presentations with an image from a work site, and it's going to be connected into the topic of their presentation. We can also start with a funny joke. This one really takes some skills. So if you're not a humorist, like I am not a humorist, I am not going to start off with a joke. Or you can start off with a memorable quote, something that is just going to grab your audience's attention. All right. You can also begin with an intriguing question How many of you have laid awake at night wondering if your training was really good? Do you know what I mean? Or how many of you have awake at night and wondered, wow, how did I bomb that training? Right? And what can I do to like make the next one better? So you can start off with an intriguing question as well. So I'm going to show you 2 quick examples of presenters. You should recognize one of them. The first one, Bill Gates. And I'm going to show you another one from Maysoon Zayid. And I want you to see how they grab the audience's attention and which of these attention grabbing techniques did they use. So we're going to start off with Bill Gates really quickly. And I love what he did. And he uses a couple of different techniques. So hang on one quick second. All right, let me share.
When I was a kid, the disaster we worried about most was a nuclear war. That's why we had a barrel like this down in our basement, filled with cans of food and water. When the nuclear attack came, we were supposed to go downstairs, hunker down, and eat out of that barrel. Today, the greatest risk of global catastrophe doesn't look like this. Instead, it looks like this.
Okay. All right. What did Bill Gates use to grab the attention of the audience? What did he use? What did he do? Yes, he used a story, he used image, he used an artifact, props. Yeah, bringing the past to the present. Right. Fact, compelling story. I mean, like this guy is a master orator, right? And this is an outstanding example of just kind of the best grabbing their attention. Do you want to stay tuned, right? You want to stay tuned and hear what he has to say, because he's done such a good job. And I'm going to tell you the truth. It's something that's it's a TED Talk that's really worth taking a look at because it's brief and to the point and jarring and does all of the things that you would hope it would do from the very beginning. All right, let's look at a second one. Again, this person uses a whole different approach to opening up their presentation, but it's also very effective, but in a very different way. So one moment, I'm going to pull that up on my screen here, get out of our Bill Gates program. Let's get out of that. Okay, stop, Bill. Okay, let's go to our next one here. Okay. All right, now I'm going to share my screen again so we can grab this new presentation. And we're just going to watch a couple seconds of her intro.
Hello, TED Women, what's up? Not good enough. Hello, TED Women, what is up? My name is Maysoon Zayid, and I am not drunk, but the doctor who delivered me was. He cut my mom 6 different times in 6 different directions, suffocating poor little me in the process. As a result, I have cerebral palsy, which means I shake all the time. Look. It's exhausting. I'm like Shakira meets Muhammad Ali.
Okay, so what did she do? How did our presenter here open up her talk? Yes, compelling story, joke. Yes, personal story. So she took something extremely difficult and traumatic and tragic and used humor, right? In a beautiful way. And it worked for her. And again, that's an example of somebody who can use that humor to a positive effect, right? And she has a beautiful story and really provides some great insight into cerebral palsy in that talk. So fantastic job here. All right. So these are some of the ways we can just grab our audience attention from the very start of our program. All right. We have other techniques too to start off any training program as well. And this one comes from my mentor, the late Mel Silverman, professor from Temple University. And he says that what we want to do as facilitators and training designers is to help our attendees dial into their favorite radio station, and that is WIFM. Anybody want to take a guess what that radio station is in the chat? What does WIFM stand for? Yes, what's in it for me, right? So why should people pay attention, right? So people come to your trainings, they're either told to come or they volunteered to come to your program, depending on whether it's required or not. So how can we help them appreciate what they're going to get out of this program and how it's going to change their life for the better, how it's going to make their job easier, how it's going to make them more effective, what are the rewards for them? What are the payoffs for them to be there? So, the payoff for you attending this training program is if you apply just one element of each of the areas that we're going over, opening the program, delivering content, or closing the program, your training is going to be more effective, more engaging. It's going to have a greater impact, and you're going to feel better about it. Okay. All right. The other thing that we can do is we can break the ice. We can start our training program with an icebreaker. And out there in the world of training, design, and delivery, there are 1,000,001 different icebreaker options. And when we break the ice with our audience, what we're trying to do is one of a couple things. One would be to help them to get to know one another. Okay, so you're connecting them, you're building a sense of community, teamwork, that kind of thing, and you're getting to know your audience. And the other would be that you're connecting them into the topic at hand. And sometimes we're combining the two in an icebreaker, so we're getting to know people and having them get to know each other, and we're connecting them to the topic. So one of the icebreakers that I use sometimes in my online classes at UMGC is instead of the traditional introduction, what's your name? What do you hope to get out of this class? I have them do a show and tell. So what they do is they pull a picture or two from their camera roll and they tell us the significance, who they are and the significance of the photos to them. And what that does is it takes our ability to get to know one another very, much deeper than we would if we were just saying, what's your name and what is your title and what do you hope to get out of this program? Sometimes I have people pull something out off of their desk and show us that and tell us what it means to them, or out of their backpack or purse or briefcase, that kind of thing. The other option we have sometimes for our icebreakers is having people introduce themselves and tell us where they're from, where they kind of joining us from, which is really interesting. I had you all do that today. And there is a tool I'm going to show you that you can use where people place themselves on a map. And I think that's a lot more dynamic than what I had you all do, but what I had you all do was really helpful too. So I'm going to show you that in just a moment. And then the last one, again, these are just 3 out of millions of options that you have to do an icebreaker, is a participant bingo. So I create a bingo card and I have people introduce themselves and then in the chat, and then people kind of go in and create a kind of fill in a person's name and one fact about the person in each of the boxes of the card, and whoever gets the most, like the blackout, all of the boxes filled first, is the winner. So I'm going to show you an example of the geolocating tool that I want to show you that you can actually use with your classes. Hang on one second. Find it. Okay. One moment. Let me just quickly share this again with you here so you can see this tool. This tool, so hopefully you can see it right now, is called Mural. So many of you might use Mural in your organizations for things like org charts and that kind of thing. But this is Mural, and this is a mural that allows you to have people share their name and their location, so where they're coming in from. So you can zero in on the map, and they can type in their name and type in their location. Very fun. We would have a broad map here in the United States, mostly along the coasts of our group today if we were using this. So Mural is a wonderful tool that would allow us to share our locations, have our group share their locations. Okay. All right. So let's move on here too. We can also open up our trainings with an on-the-spot assessment. And on-the-spot assessments are great ways for us to get to know our audience, who's in the audience, but relative to the content at hand, right? So we may want to do something like a knowledge test. So a quick quiz around key concepts that would help us to understand where people are starting the training from. And this would allow us to do one of two things: to be able to customize the content to the group that we have at hand, so that we're focusing on the things that most people need to know, or have our audience focus their attention on the areas where they need to grow, where they've got a learning deficit or opportunities for learning. The other tool that we could use, the other technique we could use would be a poll, like the one we used in Menti, where it gave me a chance to understand where your experience lies with synchronous versus asynchronous training. So again, helps us to get to know, and then we can kind of focus our content in a way that's going to meet our audience. And then we can also do a game or simulation, so we can assess the skill level of our audience. And that is super helpful as well. So if it's not knowledge that we need to know, but we want to be able to assess where people are from a skill perspective. So for example, in the training that I was mentioning to you that I delivered to this international union on facilitation skills, they start off the course by doing a presentation. So there's a brief presentation, it's recorded, and that gives us an opportunity to see where everybody is starting and for them to see where they start. And we end with a recorded presentation, and they're able to see the difference between the two. And it's quite amazing. So there are plenty of opportunities, games and simulations. There's a link here for fun learning games like Kahoot. It's a blog that provides you with a list and a description of a variety of different Kahoot-like games that you could use in any of your training programs as an opening activity, or as an activity that's a closing activity, or as a content level activity. So feel free to take a screenshot of that, or just I will include it. If you want a copy of the slides afterwards, that will be available to you as well. Okay. All right. So once we've opened the training effectively, we've got people's attention, they're feeling good, we know who they are, we're ready to go. Now we need to deliver our content effectively. And we have a variety of tools. We could do days and days. We could do an entire course, college level course on each of these components. So I'm going to give you a handful of tools that we can use to deliver our content effectively. So we're going to start off with the first kind of technique that comes from cognitive learning theory. And what cognitive learning theory tells us is that we want to break our content into chunks. So bite-sized pieces of information that people can digest instead of giving them a whole all-you-can-eat buffet right up front. So when we give people little bits of content and let them process it before we move on to the next bit of content, they're going to be able to remember it better than when we give them a full-on lecture, cover all the points, and then hope that they're going to remember it. Okay. The next thing that we can do when we want to really engage with our audience and make our training dynamic, like we heard our first presenter talk about earlier in our session, is we want to include images in our training programs. So if we're using slides, if we are using just the flat content like in Articulate, we want to choose images that are connected to the content, that are going to help people remember the words that they heard, the content that you covered with them. If the image has no relationship at all to the content, you might as well not include it. All right. Okay. We also want to use color selectively. All right. Color is amazing. And we talked about that. You all were really, even in our first couple of examples, really commenting on kind of the use of color and images and things like that. We want to make sure that when we're using color, we use color that people can see. And we use color in a way that helps people who are visually impaired. So what are some examples, if you wouldn't mind, in chat of how we can use color selectively and what kinds of color we want to use and what colors we might want to avoid, to really keep in mind people who might be colorblind or also our participants who have visual impairments. And I know we have at least one person in the group who mentioned that they might have a visual impairment. So tell us about this. Very important. And I've got a resource at the end that will help us with some of these design principles. So, okay, avoid red and green, use high contrast. Excellent. Yep. Red, green. Right. Those are fantastic. Yes. Okay. Avoid closely similar shades. Yes. Fantastic. Excellent. Okay. Blue. Yes. So the most common colors that people with color blindness cannot see would be red, green, and blue. And so what we want to do is we want to avoid using them and stick to kind of the colors like you see on the screen here, but there are other colors that we can use. And then also you want to be able to contrast the colors. All right, so that people can, so the text will pop off the page. Excellent. Okay. Great. We have a very knowledgeable audience here. Fantastic. Okay. So when we're delivering our content, we want to make sure that it is dynamic. And what research tells us is that static content delivery, like lecture or just reading off of a screen, is not as effective as when we can implement some activities that help people engage with the content. So we can have matching activities. All right. So in our programs like Articulate, you can create a matching activity where people can match a term with the definition of the term. I had a live session like this that was 2 parts. And before people came to the training, they had to go to LinkedIn Learning and they had to take this LinkedIn Learning course on bias and interviewing. And then in the training itself, the training that I delivered, we had a worksheet, a handout, where they revisited the types of bias that they learned about in the LinkedIn Learning course, and they matched the name of the type of bias with a description of the bias. And then we did a discussion, and then we talked about how do we mitigate those biases as we're interviewing and looking for the right candidates as we're hiring. Okay, so multiple ways that we can do matching, both in a live session and also in an asynchronous session. We can do a content reveal as well. Okay, so we have on the screen, we have like the title of what we're going to be talking about, and then we reveal the content to people, right? So we just kind of let it fade in, and then we kind of talk about it, or people can read about the content. We can embed video. And what we know about people learning online is that they have a very difficult time. People who have a hard time reading have a very hard time learning online, just looking at words on the page. So whenever we can embed a video, especially one that has a transcript, for those of us who do like to read and do like to have the content in word form, you can really up the impact of your training program. And you can use a video in live sessions like we're doing here, or in the asynchronous sessions. All right, you can also use games in your program. So there are many, many different types of games that we can use. You can use games like Jeopardy. You can use games like Who Wants to Be a Millionaire. You can create whatever game you want that you cannot find online. And sometimes you can find free games online, like you can with things like Kahoot. There is an activity that I'm going to show you in just a moment that you can use. It's free, and we're going to come back to that because I would consider it a game, but it's also something you can use for learning recap. And that's called the Wheel of Names. You can also use case studies to help people to think about a topic more deeply. So you've taught them, let's say, how to prevent sexual harassment, in how to report sexual harassment in the workplace. And then to make sure that people really understand, you can give them a case study or little mini case studies and give them an example of something. And then they have to decide how they would best engage with that, or respond to it, or report that particular situation. Simulations are very similar. We're giving people the opportunity to immerse themselves into, imagine themselves in a real situation, and then how would they handle that particular situation. All right. Okay, I'm going to pause here for any questions on this, any comments on this before I move on to the next set of activities. We'll keep going. We'll leave some time for questions at the end. Hopefully on your worksheet, you can make some notes, and then also any questions that you have, we can come back to them at the end. All right, when we're delivering our content, to keep it dynamic, we want to use tools as well. You see some tools up here on the screen that we can use to help us as well. So one would be polls and quick quizzes. And we can do these as live action quizzes, like we can create them in Menti, which is fantastic. Menti allows us to create polls and then also to create kind of little knowledge quizzes. And we can do these quizzes in our asynchronous training programs as well. I do want to encourage you, if you embed quizzes in your training programs, in your asynchronous training programs where you're not live, you cannot facilitate, you cannot engage with the learners in real time, to make sure that those quizzes are not like pass-fail mousetraps where people are hitting a dead end and can't go on with the content if they cannot answer the questions correctly, and quizzes that reshuffle the questions. Quizzes, to me, that are used as part of delivery of content really are about helping promote learning. So it's ideal that they allow people to move forward if they didn't get the question right, or to go back and look at the content and revisit it and find the answer that they were looking for. So, or reveal the correct answer and say, oh, here's the correct answer, so they can actually learn from the quiz and not feel punished. One of the things that we do know about adults is that they really like to feel competent and successful, and anything that you build into your program that does not make them feel that way is going to disengage them, and you will lose them, and your program will be less effective. If you can include discussions in your the delivery of your training program, it can really enhance your learning. What research shows us, social learning theory in particular, is that learning is enhanced when people have a chance to talk about it. So we can use the chat feature in our live programs. We can also use tools like X, which used to be called Twitter, and create a learning community. If you have an intact work group, so you're all from the same organization and you use a tool like Slack, you can create a channel in Slack that allows for you to share content with your attendees, and also for them to communicate with each other in an asynchronous way around the content. In these live sessions, you can also, not in this one because we're set up for 150 people, but in smaller versions of smaller programs with Teams and with Zoom, you can create breakout groups so people can have discussions and come back and share what they talked about to the larger group. We can do learning teams as well, whether you're asynchronous or synchronous. You can put people into little groups and you can have them interact with the content, whether it's live or not live, and around different things. So learning teams can be reviewing content or listening to content with the intent of generating questions, offering examples that would illustrate how one could apply what you're talking about or what is being explored online. You could also have learning teams that are focused on coming up with things that they agree with in the content, or things that they do not agree with, or things that they would like to challenge. And that can create the opportunity for you to address specific things that people may not have brought up if they didn't have a structured kind of assignment when they were approaching the learning at hand. You can use third-party tools also to help people to engage with the content more effectively. So the wheel of names, which I'm going to show you in a moment, I saw a facilitator who was delivering some training that the organization gets on a regular basis on internet security. And she introduced this tool to help people pay attention to the content. So she would deliver a chunk of content. She would spin the wheel of names. It would land on somebody's name, and she would ask them a question about the content that she just delivered. And they could take a shot at answering it. And if they wanted to pass it on to somebody else to answer because they couldn't remember it, then we spun again and somebody else had a chance to answer. So that's an excellent free tool that you can use, Wheel of Names, if you've got a live session to help people to recall immediately and pay attention closely in an online environment. And you can have structured discovery as well. So whether you're delivering static content or a lecture, just like I'm doing here, you can give people a fill in the blanks handout so that they are listening for particular terms or words or phrases that they're filling in as they're reading content, as they're watching a video, as they're listening to a lecture. You can give them questions to be answered. All right, as they are again listening to a lecture, watching a video, or reading through content. And that will help them to attend to the specific content that you feel is most important. Okay, so here is the wheel of names. And you can see right here that we just spin this wheel, and we add the names of the participants here down the side, and then we spin the wheel. and we land on somebody, they can answer a particular question or offer a particular insight. Once they do, their name comes off the wheel and it leaves just the people who haven't had a chance to answer or share an insight left to go. So this is a really fun tool. It's free, and I encourage you to try it out. Okay. Now that we could go on and on in terms of the tools that we could use to deliver content in an effective way, both in a real live environment or asynchronously. But we don't have the time to do that. So we only have a little bit of time left. And what I want to do is spend some of that talking to you about how do we close up our programs in a way that doesn't leave people hanging, but leaves them wanting more. So one of the highest compliments we can get as instructional designers and as facilitators is comments in your post-training evaluations that said, I wish we had more time. I want more. I'd love to learn more. Where are the resources? Can you have that person back, or can you have another session to follow up with the one that we just completed? We often don't get that, and people say it was too long. And that's a sign that we can tweak the content delivery. Okay, so here are some of the ways that we could consider, again, the ways that we can close out a training program are innumerable, but I'm going to share with you just a handful of my favorite ones. One is that we can create little teams that are going to get together in a live session, and they are going to talk about 2 or 3 things that they're bringing away from today's training that resonated most with them, or 3 ways that they're going to apply what was covered in the session back on the job. All right, so recap teams can do a lot of the work, or they can go back. You can take your content areas and assign a different content area to different recap teams. One would be opening. How do you open a program effectively? Second team could focus on how do we deliver content effectively, and the third could be how do we close a program effectively. And they could say, these are the techniques that we like the best, and here's another one that we didn't cover that we would recommend. Okay, excellent way to do things. So you can also do a video review. So in an asynchronous program, you could create a very dynamic, quick review of the content. So again, it's not just the static words on a page, but just a quick video review of the content. You could have a learning map that you provide to your asynchronous class or your live class that has the content areas laid out at different locations on the map. So opening a program, delivering content, closing a program effectively, and then have people kind of write down, the things that resonated with them in each area. You could give people the learning map in advance of the training, at the start of the training, and then have them make notes, and then at the end kind of share it in a live program, share, all right, a couple of the takeaways, the things that were most important or resonated most with them. And then another option is an infographic. Infographics are outstanding ways for you to briefly and creatively and colorfully and using images summarize the content that you want to make sure people leave your course with. And this is a tool that people can share with other people who didn't go to the training, including their supervisors, but also their colleagues. And it's also something that they can pull out at another time to help them to remember the content in brief form. I can't say enough about infographics. There are some free tools to create infographics, and I believe you can use Mural to create infographics, but I certainly love them. You can also find an infographic online and share it if the content is similar to the ones that you covered in your class. So infographics are awesome. Okay, here's some more. So One of the best things that I use in my college courses is that I have people focus on what resonated most with them from the training. And when I leave things open-ended like that and say, okay, I want to hear from you, what was most impactful for you? What made the most sense to you? What stuck out for you? That is when I really see what they've learned versus when I structure the questions. So one of the ways that I have people tell me what stuck out for them the most, what the kind of the number one thing is that they're leaving with, is to do a visual summary. So they can draw a picture, they can grab an image from the internet, they can use an icon, and they can share that with the group in chat, and then they can tell us about it, or they can write a word, a phrase or two, a sentence or two that kind of describes why they chose that image and what it meant to them. We can also have people share their individual or group ahas. So again, you can put people into teams and have them talk about their takeaways, like their greatest ahas. Where did they kind of get shaken up or woken up? And they can share that back with the group, or they can just talk about it amongst themselves, or share one of the biggest ahas with the larger group when you pull them back together. Whether you've got an asynchronous program or a synchronous one, you can have people keep a learning journal. The handout I gave you, in a way, can serve as a learning journal, but you can also use third-party tools to have people create their own learning journal, like their own personal wiki. We can also create learning communities. We talked about using Slack. So in organizations that I regularly support with trainings, I'm part of their Slack, and I create a particular channel for a training that I've delivered. And in there, I'll share the PowerPoint with the group. I'll share the handouts with the group. I'll share learning resources with the group, and they go in and have conversations with one another in that Slack channel. You can do that as well via Twitter, now known as X, or other, similar social media platforms, if you're allowed to use those in your organization. So virtual learning communities help keep that learning going after your training is over, and also in between multi-session training programs. Okay, so some would tell you that if people cannot apply what they learned in your training program, the training was really not worth its weight in gold. So I would agree with you. If you go to a training and it's just interesting, but it's not applicable, what good was that really? Maybe it was just entertaining. So I guess it does have some value. But I would argue that anything that you can do to help people apply what you teach them back on the job in ways that are meaningful, it's going to make more bang for the buck and have people leaving your programs with some real tools and real things that they can do. So one of the things we can do is give people structured homework assignments, right? So you help them to apply what they've learned by giving them something specific that they can do back on the job. All right, so I teach a course for some of my clients called Revolutionary Agreements, and that is a multi-session class. And in that program, there are assignments every week, and people actually have learning partners that they're assigned from the beginning that they meet with to talk about, like how they've applied what they learned in the course, where they're struggling, and the homework assignments are part of their discussion. It just really helps people to continue the learning. My mentor, Mel Silverman, he included experiments and change in each of his People Smart courses, right? So there were things you could choose from, different examples of application exercises you could choose from, or create your own adventure, right? So how are you going to apply? How do you want to apply what you've learned in the course, right? So allowing people to decide that and then do it. Providing people with helpful resources, you'll see some at the end of this program as well, and you've seen some throughout, helps people to continue the learning after the session or dive more deeply into an aspect of the training that they were interested in or found most relevant or would like to apply. So these kinds of things are super helpful for continuing the learning, deepening the learning, and having people be able to apply the learning back on the job. Okay. If you've got an organization that really wants to make sure that's getting their money's worth out of the training that they're investing in, then they may want to have you assess how effective, how impactful the training was. And we have many, many tools that we can use to assess learning. We have quizzes. You can do a pre-quiz and a post-training quiz to see if people have actually learned and filled in the gaps from where they were before the training began. You can have post-training simulations. So when you are teaching people a skill, you can have them demonstrate that skill before they actually leave the training. So we can see if they're leaving the training with the ability to do what you've trained them to do. If you want to engage supervisors in the training, you can give them an observation checklist and invite them to observe the participant at a specific time in the future or specific times in the future. Use that structured observation checklist to give the employee feedback about how well they were doing with that particular skill, and send you a copy of that structured observation checklist so that you're able to see how well the skill has stuck and if you need to do any follow-up to continue or deepen the learning or revisit a skill that is not sticking back on the job. So assessing learning after it takes place is super, super helpful. And I strongly encourage some kind of post-training assessment, either in the classroom or after the training is over, or both. Okay, did I get everything here? There's one. Yep, I think I did. Okay, there's so much more that we could talk about here. So anyway, I know we went through that very quickly. We will have some time for questions. Let me just see here. Yay, assessments in my game. Okay, this is good. Okay, yep, I'll talk to you about the slides after. You can definitely get a copy of the slides. All right, so it's time for us to wrap this up. We're in our final stretch here, and I do want to make sure that we have some time to have some questions and answers. So what I want to do is I want to hear from you about, we've covered so many different activities and tools and techniques in this brief amount of time. And again, I feel like we're just scratching the surface. And I want you to know that I have taught 1-year-long college courses in training, design, and facilitation. All right. And 1 year is not even enough, right? So 2 full semesters. So what you're doing is you're just getting a real quick synopsis here. So we covered so many things and you only heard from me. So what I'd like to do is give you a chance to share your favorite training technique or tip for online teaching or training design with us now. So again, you can go to Mentimeter.com or Menti.com and use the code 3702-7383. Or if you have your phone, you can use the camera to scan this QR code and go to Menti and just share your favorite online tool technique. This is something that I can share with you all after the training if you're interested, along with the slides, a copy of what you all come up with as what you're sharing as your favorite online tool, technique, third-party tool, whatever it is, so the rest of us can learn from it. So I'm going to stop sharing here and go to that Menti screen so we can see what you all are typing in. And we'll come back to that code. So if you can't grab it off the screen right now, I will show it to you in Menti. Hang on one quick sec. I love it. These are great. All right, keep them coming. I'll leave this open for a few more seconds. We got the wheel of names. Can't wait to try it. Where are you? And openings, Menti word pictures. Sometimes as simple as asking questions, giving people opportunities to share, just like we're doing now. Yep. Polls, quick quizzes and games and discussions. Awesome. Menti polls. Yeah, Menti's amazing. All right, keep them coming. ELMS, show and tell. Awesome. Okay. More seconds. Team channels. Excellent. Teams channels. Okay, fantastic. Yeah, Teams has this channels too. That's terrific. Wheel of names, one of the famous games I use all along with. Good. Excellent. I'm so glad. Fantastic. All right. I am going to go back to my PowerPoint. We're going to wrap this up. I am going to share again. I'm on a slide now called helpful resources. And again, happy to share this with everybody afterwards, but just to take you through a few of my favorites. Any book by Mel Silverman. He was my mentor. To me, the best thing since sliced bread when it comes to creating engaging training activities. I encourage you to read any of his books, Active Training, 101 Ways to Make Training Active, and challenge yourself to find a way to apply them online. So he was a professor in the 90s and maybe early 2000s. So really at the beginning of the internet age. So he does talk a little bit about it in some of his later editions. But again, I try to apply his techniques online. Tiadji.com, lots of great free resources there. EdApp, open educational resources. Sometimes you can find an actual full course on the topic that you want that's free and you're able to use it. Otherwise, you find some great resources that you can incorporate into your training programs. Creative Commons, another free, excellent resource for images and also content. And then Universal Design Guidelines provide us as training designers and facilitators with some helpful guidance on how do we make our training programs accessible to people with alternate abilities, right? With a variety of abilities. So excellent resources that are available for you. So, okay, your time for questions, comments, complaints, compliments, final thoughts, anything that you'd like to ask, share. I'm happy to do what I can right now. And I also want to keep things going afterwards. So, okay. Anything? We want any questions? Can you discuss pacing of training, content plus engaging activities? How do you decide the balance? Can you discuss pacing of the training? Okay, so that's excellent. So one of the things that I learned from Dr. Silverman, who I started my doctoral work under him at Temple University many years ago. I finished it elsewhere, but he told me something that I never forgot, which is to reduce the amount of content, all right, to the smallest possible amount to achieve your learning objectives so that you give people ample amount of time to digest it, process it, engage with it. So what that may mean is that you're going to end up with a multi-part asynchronous or synchronous training, and that's fine. And that's actually ideal, because if people have a chance to absorb and apply and think about and discuss what they've learned, then they can come back and they're ready for that next bit of content. So we know that the example of overload is our orientation programs, right? Where we pull people into a room for a day and we give them everything in the world. We know that they leave there and they probably don't remember it all. So any way we can break that up, it's ideal, but it's very hard operationally. So I know it's a balance. So we have to work within the parameters that we've got. So is there a different training approach to use depending on the length of the training, i.e. 1 hour, 4 hours, or 8 hours? No, you can use a variety of methodologies, no matter how much time you've got in got your people together, but you don't want it to become like a 3-ring circus, right? Where your people are just moving from one thing to the next. So choose your activities very thoughtfully. Of course, in an 8-hour program, you're going to have the opportunity to have many, many different types of training experiences for people. Okay, course of. Okay, just trying to see if I can catch these questions here. All right, any more questions? What am I missing here? Okay. How often do you try? I always try to do a dry run before an actual training event. I especially something like this. I've done this training program before. So we had like just a little session beforehand, and even like Joy said, even so, it's hard to get all that technology to work well, but I encourage you to always do a dry run beforehand, especially online when you've got multiple tools and techniques, but always live sessions wherever possible. Okay, awesome. If you have more questions for me, feel free to email me. I've got my email address here on the screen, and you've got my phone number as well. If you want to call me, you can text me at that number. If you want to connect with me on LinkedIn, feel free to do so. If you want a copy of the PowerPoint, I'm happy to send it to you. If you email me or Joy, I can send a copy to Joy. She can get it out, whatever the organization prefers. But I'd love to stay in touch with you. I'd love to connect with you on LinkedIn. So appreciate your time. I hope to see you in Philly, if not beforehand. So Joy, I want to thank you all for inviting me to be here today. And anyway, that's it. I feel like
Kim,
ran a marathon at like top speed.
Kim, thank you so much. If we could give Kim like a nice big round of applause, grab your reactions there on your feeling of today's session with Kim as our initiation session for the 23-24 program year. There was a lot of content. A lot of you were saying there's a lot of content, a lot of notes were taken. A lot of these resources, some of them, some of us use quite a bit. Some resources are new to us. So, we appreciate all the information you gave us in our 90 minutes. We have about 7 minutes left of today. And there was another question that came in, and from Trenton Crowell. And a lot of people always have this same question as when we start to engage with hostages. Their trainer or their supervisor said, I need training for my entire team. So now the entire team has to go into training because one person had one behavioral issue. Now everyone's in training. Or supervisors say, I want to have my team go through this training because of, repeat issues that are occurring that they believe only training can solve. So how do we shift the mindset of these, what a lot of us call training hostages, into now engaged students and engaged learners? Now, what is your top strategy to engage those individuals that I'm here because I have to be here. I don't want to be here. I'm disgruntled. And not only am I disgruntled, I'm going to be disengaged, actively disengaged today because I just want to be. How do we shift their mindset?
That's an excellent question. I'm going to tell you the biggest tool you have at your fingertips to shift that is to create an engaging program, right? So if it's live, creating those learning teams, you're putting people in small groups. That's also minimizing that person's chances of disrupting at the larger level. So you're putting them in a small group. In small groups, even like a duo or trio, it's hard to just be quiet. You can, but it's hard to be quiet. I think also the WIFM and acknowledging, right, at the beginning, people come into this training and you're either a vacationer, you're here just to take some time off from work, you are a prisoner, you were told to be here, and so you're here reluctantly, or you are a participant. And my goal is to create an experience for you where whether you're you're a prisoner or you are a vacationer, I want you to become a participant. And we can do that by finding that one thing, the one aha, the one thing that made it worth your while to be here today. Right? Just look for one thing. That's all I ask. Because if you find that one thing, it can change your job. It can change your life. One of the stories I did not tell was a story from Dr. Silverman. From the Philadelphia area. We have toll takers on all of our tollways, all of our highways, pretty much. And they used to be historically disgruntled. You hated to go to a toll with cash because they were so unpleasant. They were unhappy. And he was hired to do customer service training with them. So they were all prisoners. They did not want to be there. Why do customer service? These people have to come through my tolls. I have to take their toll. There's no discussion here. So we taught them how to be, more pleasant and to be more interactive and have conversations with the people as quickly as they had them at the tolls. And he said, if you do this, I guarantee you're going to be happier in your job. They said, no way. He said, I challenge you to try these techniques out for 1 month. And when we come back for the follow-up session, I want to hear how it went. If it didn't work, throw them out the window. They all came back happier. Doing what he said made a difference to them. To this day, I mostly find positive, pleasant toll takers on any New Jersey, PA highway. So anyway, challenge them, right? And acknowledge that you may be wrong, right? So those are my favorites. Anything else?
I think that was the last one. Again, thank you so much, Kim. And thank you everyone at our max participation today. We had over 67 people that actually logged in. And I know some people had meetings they have to jump to, or something came up. So thank you so much for everyone joining. Again, the recording will be available. We did record to the cloud. So we'll make that available to the TOC community whenever we're able to move that over. And we will get the slides available as well. And you all have that great, wonderful workshop or worksheet that Kim provided, and we were able to upload in the system. So again, thank you for your engagement. Thank you for participation. And Dr. Sott, thank you so much for being our first one of the season.
My pleasure. And thank you for letting me learn right along with you. So thank you for the invitation. Again, hope to see you all again. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Thanks.